Welcome once again to another session by Pinnacle Professional College. I'm bringing you a lecture on advanced audit and assurance. As always, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do so. Hit the subscribe button, and anytime we get a video or we upload a video, you will be one of the first people to receive it. So please do that immediately. Hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon, and you will surely get all of our videos. You can find us on social media on Facebook, Pinnacle Professional College on Instagram. We are Pinnacle Professional College as well. And on Telegram, you can also find us by searching for Pinnacle Professional College. Today, we'll be talking about a few things. We'll be first focusing on obtaining and charging for professional audit work. Professional audit work. We'll be talking about the business risk approach, the system-based approach, and other issues as well. So let's dive right into the slides. So obtaining professional work. How do auditors obtain professional work, and how do they even charge for it? It's very, very important. Audit practices. One of the things you need to know is that audit practices would want to increase the size of their client base. Audit firms exist also to make some profits, right? They need to increase their client base in order to increase the profits of the practice. And this can be achieved by promoting their reputation in the business community. As they begin to promote their brand in the business community, audit firms get to become well-known. They get to become well-known. And that helps a lot. Number two, recommendations from existing clients. That's another way of increasing the client base. So one client would recommend the audit firm to another client, and that sort of increases the client base. Advertising also helps, as well as publicity and promotion. Now let's talk about advertising and publicity for a second. When a professional accountant in public practice solicits for new work through advertising or other forms of marketing, there's a possibility of a threat to compliance with the fundamental ethical principles. We talked about fundamental ethical principles in our previous lectures, which is on this YouTube channel. So if you haven't taken a look, please do so. And it will help you so much. For example, a self-interest threat to compliance with the principle of professional behavior is created, if services, achievements, or products are marketed in a way that is inconsistent with that principle. So it's very, very important to understand that in the audit firm's bid to gain more clients, in how they pitch their advertising or pitch their publicity, it could raise some threats, threats. And we talked about threats and safeguard in our previous lectures. It could raise some threats to the fundamental ethical principles. It's very, very important. Very, very important, especially when the advertising is done in such a way that it's over-exaggerated, It's over-exaggerated such that the auditor is only seeking their interest and is mentioning things that they are even not able to deliver, in the advertising. Sometimes people couch advertising videos in a way that is just to get the customer to buy and not necessarily list the things that the customer will get from purchasing the products. So this can, breach the fundamental ethical principle in terms of how the advertising is done. The main requirements for marketing professional services are that the advertising and publicity material used by any firm must not bring disrepute to the professional body. How the advertising is done should not bring disrepute to the professional body that the audit practice belongs to. It's very, very important. Number two, The audit practice also should not make exaggerated claims. You see, we talked about exaggerated claims. They should not make exaggerated claims for services offered. They should not make exaggerated claims for services offered, qualifications possessed, or experience gained. It's very, very crucial. So in delivering their advertising or delivering their adverts, the audit firm should be honest and truthful and not mislead people. When they are misleading people, then that creates a threat and that breaches the fundamental ethical principles. Number 3, the audit firm must also not discredit the services provided by other firms, or make disparaging comments about other firms, So in your bid to advertise, increase your client base, the audit firm must not discredit the services provided by other firms. It's very, very important. And also, the audit firm must not break any locally recognized codes of advertising practice. The audit firm should not do that. They should not break any code. So there must be honesty, there must be honesty when it comes to making adverts or trying to source for clients. The audit firm must be honest and must not do anything that will bring disrepute to the professional body. It's very, very important. Now, we talked about obtaining and charging for professional work. So let's talk about fees. The question of setting a price for the provision of a service is always a sensitive matter. The question of setting a price is always a sensitive matter, because disputes may arise. If the fees are unreasonable, if the fees are not reasonable, then it creates disputes. It's very, very important. It can create disputes. So how you charge for your work, the audit firm needs to make a lot of considerations. So in establishing the fee for professional work, the accountant should follow professional guidance. In any case, they must ensure they do not breach any fundamental ethical principles. So these fundamental ethical principles are very, very important. They are very, very important, and they must ensure they do not breach any of these ethical principles. An auditor is entitled to charge for his services because he's providing a service. And in situations where a fee, for some reason, the basis of a fee has not been specifically agreed to, then the auditor should charge a fee which is reasonable. Reasonable. And these are some of the considerations that the auditor needs to make when charging a fee. They charge the fee based on the professional expertise of the people who are engaged in the work. So what is the professional expertise? What is their seniority? It's very, very important. What kind of experience do they have? The team members who are performing the work, what kind of experience do they have? It's very, very crucial. That's one. So the people. Number 2 is the time. The time expended by each member of the team. So how much time are they putting into this? What is the degree of risk and responsibility? What is the degree of risk? So all these considerations have to be made, and the priority of work, the priority of work and the importance of the work. It's very, very important. So we've talked about fees. Now let's talk about tendering, the whole tendering process, right? So tendering is basically a commercial process widely used by companies when they wish to change auditors, So when companies wish to change auditors, they use a process called tendering. Tendering involves 2 or more audit firms being invited by a company to submit a proposal for its audit work. So tendering is like you're submitting a proposal for a service, of an audit service that you can provide. It's very, very important. The tendering process should commence only when a firm has been approached by a prospective client. It's very, very important. So there are some questions that must be asked by the company. Number one is, if you are going to engage an auditor, you need to ask these questions. Number one is, does the firm have the expertise to carry out this audit? Does the audit firm have the expertise? Do they have the knowledge to carry out the audit? Does the firm have the sufficient staff? So people. Does this firm have the sufficient staff available at the appropriate time? Are there any reasons that would make the firm unable to act? The audit firm unable to act. So what are some of these reasons? Independence issues or conflict of interest issues. Are there any things like that? Also, you'd want to understand, are there any problems or issues that this prospective auditor has with the current auditors? So these are questions that must be asked. These are questions that you need to lay out and ask. It's very, very, very important. Very, very important. Now let's talk more about the tendering process. The tendering process. What is the whole benefit of the tendering process? The principal benefit to the clients of a tendering process should be lower audit fees. Lower audit fees. Now, what does this mean? And how does this even play out? In a tendering process, several firms, audit firms, are competing for the work. And so it should drive down the audit fees. So in a response to the pressure to reduce their fees, audit firms have become more efficient and lowered their costs. So it's very, very important. That's one of the benefits that the tendering process gives, lower audit fees. Now, what you need to understand is that if the tender is not accepted, right, the time and cost involved in the tendering process has been wasted. So the firm needs to be sure that a high proportion of its tenders will be successful to justify the cost. So if a company engages in a tendering process, they need to be sure that there will be a high proportion of tenders and they'll be able to make a selection from those proposals. Otherwise, they would have spent a lot on the tendering process without getting any return. Now, what are the steps in the tendering process? I think this will really, really be helpful to you. What are the steps in the tendering process? The tendering process should be broken down into the following stages. Number one, you cannot engage in the tendering process without getting some background information about a possible new company or possible new client. It's very, very important. So collect background information. Number two is establish the scope of the work. What kind of work are we going to engage in? What kind of work are we going to engage in? Number three is carry out a preliminary audit risk assessment and prepare a preliminary plan for the audit. Right? So these are the stages. So you carry out a preliminary audit risk assessment, and this plan must cover the staffing requirements and the time requirements. One of the things that is very, very important in audit is the staff and the time. Staff and the time. And these two things are a huge determinant when it comes to pricing your audit service. So after that, you can estimate a fee. Then you prepare a submission document for the potential clients. If required, prepare and give a presentation to the potential client. So this is very, very important. Simple process, right? It begins by collecting information, establishing the scope of work, carrying out a preliminary audit risk assessment. Then you are able to cover the staffing requirements and the time requirements, from which you'll be able to estimate the fee. Then you can prepare your submission document for the potential clients. Very, very important. Now, let's look at how to evaluate the tender. In evaluating the tender, the client is likely to consider the following issues. The fees, right? The fees would be one critical thing that the clients will consider. The services that the firm is able to provide, the geographical location and coverage of the firm's offices. So you would want to, sometimes companies will want to work with audit firms that cover several locations. For example, if it's a multinational, they want an audit firm that's able to cover several locations across the world. It just helps them in terms of relationship, you know. Another thing is the expertise of the firm and its staff, right? That's another thing they want to understand. What is the expertise of the firm and the staff? Then the reputation of the firm, the reputation of the firm. So these are some considerations that the clients would make. Now, in this whole tendering thing, there's a practice that is called lowballing. Lowballing. So lowballing is the practice of tendering for audit work at a very low fee. You know, so you're tendering for audit work at a very low fee with the objective of winning the audit. So audit firms go in low, they price their services low with the aim of, you know, just winning the audit. So after they win the audit, then what they do is that they raise the audit fee in future years, you know, or they are able to provide other non-audit services to cover up for their losses, you know. It's very, very important. So that's what we call lowballing. Lowballing is like a form of penetration pricing and strategy where you price low to enter the market, and then after you get the customers, then you can try to begin to raise the audit fee in future. So lowballing is the practice of tendering for the work at a very, very low fee with the objective of winning the audit. So this is where I'll bring today's lecture to an end. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. This is basically a summary on obtaining and charging for audit work or professional work. This will really, really help you in the exam. And thank you for watching and listening. Have a good day.